Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Dr. Renee Spencer, your favorite life alignment strategist, as well as certified life, relationship, and business coach. So thank you all for joining me again. And I appreciate everyone, especially on this new ride of mine. But I have to say, I am having a great time. You know, I always like disclaimers that if there's any technical difficulties, I will make sure to get it right going forward. But anyway, today I want to talk about ways to be in a relationship with someone who is in prison. Yes, not jail, but prison. I thought it'd be fitting because I do get clients that, that have this type of relationship going on. Now, I have to say, this is not necessarily conventional for some, but for others, it is. And, we talk about all things relationship and work-life balance, right? So, I have to say, some of you may agree that being friends with someone who's in prison is one thing, but being in a relationship with a person who's in prison is a whole other situation. Relationships can be tricky, especially to navigate even at the best of times. Absolutely. But when a person's in prison, there's a whole other host of issues that the two people have to contend with so they can be happy together. Yes, you can actually be in a happy relationship even if the person is in prison. Like I said, it may not be for everyone, but there are people out there that's going through the same thing. Who are we to judge, right? So like I said, I want to offer some tips and tricks on how to ensure that your relationship with your partner is loving and supportive. And the results would be that, honestly, when that person comes home from prison, life will start or continue, and both of you will put your best foot forward and drive off in the sunset. So, absolutely. So, let's be aware that these tips are the best way, which I believe, working with so many clients, that, to be honest, how you can get ahead of the trying times, if you will. And there's things that's always going to be challenging in any type of relationship. But, with love and support, honestly, I think these things will lend itself to be, great for the relationship and for the cause. Like I said, who are we to judge? But I did say prison, and the reason why I reiterate that is because often when you're dating someone or in a relationship with someone who's in prison, they tend to be a little further away. They're not always as close maybe as someone who may be in jail. So, we know that, again, they're not always around the corner. So the first thing is you have to be good with long distance relationships. And it can be really helpful to think of your relationship as something that is, like I said, long distance. And it should help you deal with the mental separation, because it can be tough, especially if you visit that person. You need to be happy with spending time alone or with family and friends to make up for the time that you're away from your partner. And with these types of relationships, the use of communication is essential. While you may not always have free time to see each other face to face, if you're dating someone in prison, you need to probably try to make use of communication that is available to you. Now, that could be really, I hate to say it, but a great use of communication in this instance, if you're not face to face, is the good old pen and pad. That always works. And some facilities offer internet so they can, send emails to you. but also the use of telephones. So make sure that you try to be readily available for them, because it honestly, in their day to day, just to hear your voice, I'm sure would brighten their day, put a little smile on your face. But aside from, like I said, the whole the writing and things like that, always try to pay them a visit. Without a doubt, a crucial piece of advice that I always give to my clients in this situation is, when time permits and is allocated to you, if you don't mind, find time to visit them. What has happened is, when you don't visit them and you start drifting off from communication, then that means that you could possibly be drifting apart, which means eventually you will not have that same type of relationship that you once had. Face-to-face relations, face-to-face business, I should say, honestly, makes them coming home a little easier. They have something to actually look forward to. And I have to say, be open with one another. A person in prison already goes through rift with difficulties, and you both may be experiencing a lot of different feelings. You, therefore, need to be open and honest with each other about what's going on in your lives and how you feel and what you're thinking. Now, I have to say, don't get into all like the little petty things, like, oh yeah, so and so got into a fight, they don't like you, blah blah blah. All that stuff is not really essential, especially when someone is locked up, right? I mean, when I say talk and work through and express your feelings, I'm talking about the feelings that the two of you have amongst each other. Everyone else and things that are going on around you guys are really just white noise. It's just like talking to the Charlie Brown teachers, like, nobody cares about that. That is not essential. You don't want this relationship to take any additional toll than what it had already. And plus, two, you don't want your partner to be blindsided when your relationship could possibly be blossoming. So, like I said, talk through any issues. But, it is difficult having a relationship with someone in prison. So I would definitely say that one of the more difficult ordeals to deal with when in a relationship with someone in prison is judgment. And judgment could be from family, friends, as well as society. I mean, come on, let's think about it. Social media, most people are on some type of social media platforms, which means that they could just do a simple Google, type in your name or anything. So you want to make sure that, honestly, if you don't already have it, you have thick skin. And if you have thick skin, it's not so bad to have thicker skin. Because again, this is your life. And you know what? Only the two of you can determine what happiness is. And you want to be as happy as possible. So, talk through any problems that you may have. And again, face them head on. And that's the whole part of being open and honest with one another. Because to be quite frank, it's important not to let problems fester and become much bigger than what they are. And in this case, for any relationship, but for people who are dating or in a relationship with someone who's in prison, the two of you really are in a partnership. And you need to make sure that that partnership is solid. I mean, when I say solid, that means can no one penetrate that relationship. Because if problems fester, believe it or not, they become so big that it's sometimes hard to work through them. especially when they're on the inside, because they're already being faced with so many problems and challenges that you may not even be privy to just on their day-to-day routine. So, I will also say this is start considering, especially if you know they're down to the next few weeks, months, or a couple of years, is have a plan for when they get out. Couples find that honestly, first few days, weeks, or months at when they come home are always the hardest. And for that reason, I would say have a little change aside for your partner's survival. And honestly, if you have a plan that you've already saved your money for you may want to make sure that you save a couple of dollars for them, because unless they're going to be in like a halfway house or they already have a job, then that means that you might be carrying some of the financial load, at least temporarily, until they kind of get on their feet. I always say, the first year is going to be a little challenging. And the reason why I say that is because they have to get acclimated to being back in society. And I don't know, some of you may have already been in relationships with the person before they went in, or you may have developed them while they were in. But when they come home, now you have to kind of get acclimated to them, or you two being around each other, as a couple. So there's going to be some, difficulties, at least for, the immediate future, I will say. And I mean, don't get upset when they walk out and don't close the door, because think about it, ain't like it's doors in prison. When they do like little stuff that, that the technology changes. It's a few things that changes when they come home. But I will talk about that on a later time of how to prepare for when they come home. I'll talk about that. But I want you to do is now make sure that you focus on yourself. For the time, especially that they're away, you can be possibly lonely. You're not always going to have family and friends and someone around you to, to kind of like fill in. So you need to be able to rely on yourself instead of, your partner. And I have to say that in situations like this, they may not always, as you know, be readily available. And then also for your support, and other people may not too. So make sure you focus on yourself and have confidence in your strengths and abilities to get through these tough times. If you can get through these times as a couple, I mean, there's nothing that, would be too difficult to get through, because you already know what it's like. You have like boots on the ground, as I call it. And, not for nothing, but like I said before, I'm going to elaborate a little bit more, but because I want to reiterate it, that you have to be supportive. And really, they really are going to depend on your support. You need to be like their virtual shoulder to cry on, but you need to support each other. That is important, because really, both of you are going through difficult times, and you're going through it really separate, because they're where they are and you're home. So it's going to be some, kind of difficult roads ahead, and that's okay, right? But know that it's going to be hard, without a doubt. When they go in, it starts there. But as they're in, during their sentence, is going to be difficult as well. So perhaps the best way to arm yourself to cope around these times is to acknowledge and be honest with yourself and say, look, tough times don't always last forever, but at least you're acknowledging that it's tough. And by no means diminish how you feel, but instead accept that it's tough and you can find ways to make yourself happy. You're going to go through what I call ebbs and flows. So one day you're going to be extremely jovial and happy, and the next day you might not be, you may not be because maybe you're reflecting on the situation. But you have to find ways to try to like cheer yourself up. But you have to be honest with yourself. That is crucial. So acknowledging that you have a partner who's in prison, and at least when you're honest with yourself, your future with your partner would be, a little brighter because and they know that really whatever you do or what they do kind of affects the both of you. So that's what it is, and it's okay. This is just really, like a setback for the setup. And it doesn't depict the whole story. You know what you can take. You know what the relationship has gone through and can. But don't give in to lust. That is essential because what tends to happen is with the boredom and things like that, sometimes you might find that your eyes are wandering. You're looking for a temporary love interest in someone else. But if you're serious about your partner, then it's imperative not to give in to lust. And trust me, it is very easy, especially during them spring and summer months. Oh, absolutely, it's easy, right? Yes. But you know what? Honestly, you are human and things happen. But don't give them a reason, especially while they're in, to be concerned about what's going on, right? And so know that you make a difference in their life. You are essential, and I use the word imperative because these things are so important. You will really be the one thing that really puts a smile and some joy on the heart of, your loved one. So you need to take this on with a grain of salt and really assign it to the importance that it deserves, right? Because quite frankly, it will also give you strength to keep going when times are tough. So let me just go through some kind of like what I call FAQs that people have asked me and what has gone through, my clients have gone through. So they asked, like, for instance, how do you date someone in jail? Like, what is that all about? And dating someone in jail from both people takes involvement. Both of you have to be comfortable with that because, again, you're not going to have like a regular type of relationship. Your relationship is going to be divided, of course. You got that wall and that building that is dividing you. It is. You got phone calls, you got visits. It could be a conjugal visit, whatever type of visit, if the facility permits. But then you have the internet. So that is what's going to be your, your relationship. But can you date someone in prison? Absolutely. Can you be happy with it? Absolutely. But you also have to be sure to know that you're going to keep other people's opinions and their thoughts out of the midst of your relationship. And then someone asked me, like, can you fall in love with someone in prison? Absolutely. I've had more fall in love with someone in prison than you would care to believe. And falling in love with someone in prison, of course, is absolutely possible. It takes a lot of work and a lot of persistence, especially on both sides. And both people need to know what they're getting into. But absolutely, because again, you're on the outside and they are on the inside. So absolutely. And then I get, is cheating if your boyfriend is in prison? Is it cheating if your boyfriend or your girlfriend's in prison? And I'm gonna be honest, if both of you are seeing someone else, then yeah, it could be considered cheating. But again, maybe you have someone who's in prison, they tell you, you know what, you can go out there and date someone because I'm going to be here for a while. But that's something that you have to work out. So can your mate cheat while they're in prison, and can you cheat? Yes, I mean, they could actually have somebody else coming to see them too. Absolutely. And so I also got, how do you deal with a partner who's in jail, right? So we're saying jail, not necessarily prison, but like dealing with someone who's in jail, it can be difficult without a doubt. But you just have to take one day at a time and make sure that you always, like I said, make the phone calls and honestly, try to respond to them as quickly as possible. I mean, you do have their lives, but when it's time to talk to them, it kind of ease their mind about, things that, could be quite difficult, but you don't want to, like I said before, you don't want to put any additional pressure on them. And so the infamous question was, how do you tell if a prisoner is using you? Well, honestly, yeah, it happens a lot, actually. But if you believe that someone's in jail is using you in some way, the best thing to do is just come out right and ask them. And, try to see from their perspective. I have to say that sometimes they may not be cheating. It might just be, something that you just may be thinking about. But to be honest, it may not be happening. So don't get yourself all worked up. Just try to work with the situation and relationship at hand. So those are my key takeaways and my questions. But I want to end with this. Dating someone who in prison, honestly, can be extremely difficult, without a doubt. I know that I have given all the little perks and support and all this little fluffy, fluffs, but it's difficult. And it's important as a result not to diminish how hard it can be. You have to realize that, guess what? You're in this for the long haul, or you have already been. So, you need to arm yourself with the right tools for them to cope and for you to cope. And quite frankly, take on or make sure that you voice all of your suggestions and your opinions and make the best choice possible. Again, this may not be for everyone, and just like any relationship, I always say make sure you look out for the red flags but the green flags too. I mean, sometimes when a person's in prison, they tend to manipulate you, but hey, quite frankly, people on the street may do that too. But again, it has to be something that you're willing to go in, get into head and feet first. And when in doubt, you don't have to date anyone in prison. You could just be their pen pal or whatever. You don't necessarily have to be a person who is dating someone in prison, or you don't have to think about, okay, this is going to be long term. The two of you will decide what is, what's the best course of action. But thank you so very much. And I did want to mention before I go is my book called The Depths and Diversity Within Relationships, because again, we talked about relationships, but again, it's called The Depths and Diversity Within Relationships. Let's talk about it. And this is a great read. It's a quick read. It's only 100 pages, and it can be found on Amazon. And I would strongly suggest to pick it up because it talks about so many areas of relationships, from the importance of father and daughter relationships, life after divorce, losing a parent, being in the military, someone grew up in the city. We talk about how relationships can be seasonal. So, and someone else is in foster care. So again, I would definitely urge you to pick up that book. And then also, if you ever want to talk to me about any type of session, like a coaching session, please get in touch with me at drlamarrspencer@gmail.com. That's drlamarrspencer@gmail.com. And I look forward again to additional, little chats with you all. But again, thank you so very much. And then in the next time, see you later. Thank you so very much.